Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity multiplayer tutorial. In today's video, we'll be looking at sync events, which is a really easy way for the server to notify all the clients that something happened. This is especially useful for user interface, but there are plenty of other applications too. I hope you're looking forward to it. Let's get started. So before the coding, I'll make sure you're up to date with what I've got here. So I've got a tutorials folder for my previous free tutorial things that I've done in Mirror, and I've made a new folder. This is the fourth one called Events. You can go get this on GitHub, okay? It's Mirror Multiplayer Tutorials on Dapper Dino. And what we have is we have the scene and the light settings, nothing important there. And then we have scripts, okay? We have two scripts for this video. They're both just empty. We'll be writing them in a minute, okay? We've got the health script where the logic will be for taking damage, the usual. And then the health display script, which will be updated when the health changes. Every client will have a health bar for every other client. So you can see everyone's health bar updating. You'll have seen it in the intro to this video, in the little preview, okay? So this is going to use the sync events to actually update based on which client takes damage. As for the actual player and the UI, in the prefabs folder, we have one prefab called player. Here it is. The player has the usual, well, the player is this sphere here, okay? And it has the network identity script, so it's a networked object. And it has the health script, which hasn't been written yet, but just stick that on there. And then on the UI, we have another script. Now this could also technically go on the player, it really doesn't matter. And this script is the health display script. Under this, we have a canvas, which is set to world space, so the UI is in the world with the player. And I've positioned it just above the player's head. Its width is 2 and height is 0.5. You can see all these settings here, pause if you want to copy them, or just go on GitHub and look. The background is obviously this little black behind bit, and then the health is on top of that. And the health has the image type set to filled, which means we can actually select horizontal here and turn the fill amount down and up. And now we have a health bar. So we're going to write some code to track the health for all the players, and whenever it updates, everyone will see that, and everyone will update that corresponding health bar to show the health going down like this. Just make sure that your network manager has that player prefab set as the player prefab. And one other thing I've got in the scene are some spawn points. So I've got a spawn point at the bottom left, bottom right, top left, top right, and the middle. Okay, these are all just empty game objects with the network start position. Okay, and what this does is that when the game starts, the network manager grabs all those start positions. Whenever a player joins, it just allocates them randomly. So first player will go at the bottom left, then bottom right, and so on and so forth. You can set it here to be random or round robin. Round robin means it'll just go in this order. So the first player will be bottom left, then next here, next here, next here, next here. And then once it's done, it'll go back to the start. So if someone else joins, they'll go to the bottom left, which will cause overlap in this example, but it's just an example. Okay, now for the fun, the coding. We're going to write a really simple damage script. I've written hundreds of damage scripts over time. Right? There's so many different ways you can do this. Depends on whether you have damage reduction, all these extra complex systems in place. We're going to keep it really simple. Make sure it inherits from network behavior, because obviously we're going to be syncing stuff across the server and the clients. So we're going to need this to be a network behavior. Okay, I'm going to make a header in the UI for settings. And we're going to have two fields. We're going to have an int for the max health. Which will be 100, and a value for how much health is taken off every time the player hits space. So I know it's a bit counterintuitive, you're damaging yourself, it doesn't matter. The point is, you hit space and you're going to take, let's say, damage per press is 10, okay? Then one thing we want to sync is our current health. That's the only thing we really need to sync, is when our health changes. So make a sync var, okay? And it's going to be an integer called current health. Now, you might be saying, I already know how to do this kind of thing with the health, okay? Because what you can do is you can go here and write hook equals and then the name of a method, and then when this variable is updated on the server, that method will be called for all the clients. But the sync event cuts out quite a bit of code, because what you'd have to do to have the same effect is you'd have to then make an event in here and then make a hook method, and that hook method would call that event. So yeah, you can do the same thing, but the sync event is designed to not, it's just designed to stop you having to do that. Right, so we don't want any hook here for this variable. Keep going. This is where we do the sync event, okay? So what is the event? What data does it pass through? It passes through two ints, the current health and the max health. So we want to make a public delegate void. Okay, this is just defining what the event is. So you might be used to using, action of type int, but Mirror doesn't like that. You have to use it a bit differently. You can't use generics. So we have to define a delegate, which is it doesn't return anything, so it's a void. Health changed and then delegate. All right, you can call it what you want, but delegate. And the two things that are passed into the event is the current health and the max health. Okay, zoom out a little bit. So that's defining the delegate. and on the next line, we're going to use it. So for a sync event, you use the attribute sync event, okay? And then we put public event, and then the type, which is a health change delegate, and then the name. Name has to start with the keyword event, all right? That's just a mirror thing. Sync events need event, just like how RPCs need RPC at the start and commands need CMD. So event health changed, we'll call it. And this is the event you subscribe to on clients to know when the health changes. We haven't actually called it anyway yet, so let's keep going. Let's make a region for the server, okay? End region, and a region for the client code. I like doing this to separate it out. It just makes it a lot easier to see what's going on when you only want to go looking for either the server or the client code. So we need a way to set the health. Now, because we're going to raise an event every time the health changes, let's make a method to set the health to a value where we set the current health equal to that value. And every time we do that, we want to raise the event. So this is the event we're raising. So we'll say event health changed, question mark in case it's null. So this is only raised if it isn't null. And then what we're invoking, we're going to pass in, look here, a current health and a max health using these from up here. So pass in the current health and the max health. Easy. So remember, this is on the server. Whenever the server updates the health, it will also raise an event, this sync event, which means all the clients that are subscribed to this will actually receive the event. And just for the sake of it, we'll add server here, meaning Mirror won't let anyone else call this method. If you're not the server, it will just stop. It'll stop you doing it. Okay. And on start server, so override on start server, whenever a player starts existing on the server, we want to set the health to be the max health. So set health, max health. All right. That's one thing done. And then we also need a method to deal damage. So this is a command because the client will call this on the server, right? The client will tell the server to deal damage. So private void CMD, because it's a command, it has to start with CMD, deal damage. And that's going to not take in anything, actually. We don't need to know how much damage because we're not going to let the client tell us how much damage to deal. We're going to read our own value on the server. Technically, the client can still cheat because they can, they can get a macro to hit the space key 100 times a second, 1,000 times a second, or whatever. Now, there's obviously limitations with how many inputs can be received by the server, but this is still just a stupid example where whenever the player hits space, we're going to tell the server to deal damage, which is going to set the health. Now, what value is the health going to be? It's going to be the maximum value, the bigger value between the current health minus the damage per press, or 0. All right, I use this all the time if you guys watch my videos, or maybe you use this too. Let me just see why this is wrong. It doesn't take 2 arguments because I need to get rid of this bracket there. Okay, so we're setting the health to be whichever number is bigger, either this or 0. So basically, if the health goes below 0, if the health goes negative, because imagine on 2 health and they take 10 damage, it'll be -8, then we want to say that 0 is bigger than that, so set it to be 0. It just stops the health going below 0. And this is the entirety of the server code. So let's hide the server code and go into the client area. The client just needs one method, which is the update method. So I'm going to take input in update. And this is only for the client, so it's a client callback method. And we want to say, well, if this isn't ours, because this will be called for every client player, so we're going to say, if we don't have authority, then just return. And the other check is if we didn't press spacebar, return. So if not, keyboard.current.space key was press this frame. The space key wasn't pressed, then return. Finally, if it was, we want to deal damage. CMD deal damage. Okay, and that's the entire logic for the health script, right? So let's just quickly go back over it. We have the max health and the damage per press of the space key. We sync the current health, and then we have an event here. So we can raise this event on the server only. So this can only be called on the server, but then all the clients subscribed will receive the event. And this is on the server where we set the health. So we do it in start server and on deal damage. When the server starts, or when this object starts on the server, I should say, we set the health to be max, quite simple. And then we deal damage, we set the health to be this. Then on the client, it's just every frame we say, well, if it belongs to us and we press spacebar, then deal damage. And finally, if we jump over to the health display script, this doesn't need to be a network behavior, just a normal mono behavior. Okay, we need some references to 2 things. We need reference, obviously, to the health script to be able to subscribe. So health, And we also need reference to the image to be able to change the UI. Make sure it's unityengine.ui, health bar image. Okay. And now what we need to do is on enable and on disable, we want to subscribe and unsubscribe from the event. So health dot event health changed plus equals, and if you wait here and you tap tab, it actually makes the method for you and you can rename it. So we'll call it handle health, make sure I spell it right, changed. And I like putting this below the disable method. And then in disable, we can unsubscribe like so. And what do we want to do whenever the health changes? We want to update the UI. So the health bar image dot fill amount we're setting equal to the basically the current health over the max health. But we need to cast to a float for this because they're both ints. So if you do an int over an int, you'll get back an int. So that means it will only give us 1 or 0. The health bar would snap to 1 or 0. We want it to be actually a float here. So cast that and do that division, and we're done. Back over in Unity, go to your prefabs, go to your player. And on the player, you see here, we can set the health and the damage per press if we want to. That's fine how it is, in my opinion. Go to the UI. We need reference to the health script, which is on the player. Let's drag that in. And the image, which is down here. Drag that in. Okay, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I've decided to open it 5 times. Okay, there are 5 windows here hiding behind each other, just to show you it working. So I'm going to host. Okay, that's player 1. Join as a client, player 2. Join as a client, player 3. Join as a client, player 4. And then one of these joins a client, player 5. Okay, actually, no, I can't join as a 5th player because I told my network manager actually to set the max connections to 4. So let's just go for 4, okay? You see each of these have all of the players and all of the health is full, okay? Let's close this one we don't need. Okay, here's all the players. Now, I am the bottom left one over here, okay? And if I press space, I take some damage, and you see over on all the other clients, the health updates, okay? Pretty nice. So if I move it like this, you can actually see the health bar goes down. If I go to the second instance, the top right one goes down, and it goes down for everyone, okay? You can see all the top right ones have taken damage. So it works just as we expected. I can then pick this window over here. This guy's top left starts taking damage now. So just from knowing how to do this, you can really see how you could use this in many different examples. It's useful for so much UI, but you can also use it for any case where you need to tell the client something, okay? So obviously, as I explained, this is a nicer way of not using hook for a sync variable because you don't have to have a sync variable, have a hook method, call an event. You know, it's just an extra step you don't need to do with this. But also, there are other scenarios where the server says, for example, imagine the game ending, right? Why don't you just raise an event saying the game has ended like this? You know, you can tell all the clients the game has ended. Simple. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know down below what you want to see next. Thanks always for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and goodbye. But of course, before I go, I've got to thank my Patrons. Special thanks to Taylor Rustio, Francisco Lira, John Salig, Liz Kimber, Ansikan, Sam Marcus, Matt Fryer, LN, Fabian Reno, Malvin, Samran, David McDermott, Exit, Josh Folsom, Beardadai, Dustin Miller, Rack, Yoris Letter, and Rene. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, link to my Patreon is down below. If not, there are also links down below to other social media, such as Twitch, Twitter, and Discord, as well as our Udemy course and our website. If you could check any of those out, that'd be greatly appreciated. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.